from 1973. One of the best Stevie Wonder songs. Yeah, it's Claire's there. Because coming up in this next segment of Way Out There, we're going to talk about that. Superstitions. Friday the 13th, last Friday, that kind of thing. We're going to talk about that coming up here on Way Out There, here on GJRB. Gary J. Russell with you back on the radio for the next segment of our Way Out There show on a Friday, Freestyle Friday, here on GJRB. And this is where we have it. And we have a lot of good stuff coming up in this next segment. So stick around for that. Got a lot of really neat stuff. We're going to talk about superstitions in just a little bit as we play an interview by a guy named Mitch Horowitz. And he wrote a book on such a thing. And he was on Dave Schrader recently on a recent Coast to Coast AM talking about this. Speaking of which, this portion of Way Out There being brought to you by Premier Radio Networks, the people who bring you Coast to Coast AM nationwide on many fine AM and FM talk stations throughout America. We hear great talk like Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. And it's a great show. And always a good guest. Coming up a little later on, I'll be giving you, and I think they released their schedule for next week's guest lineup, and I'll give it to you coming up toward the end of the show here on GJRB. Right now, though, we're just going to continue talking about some really stuff, including, believe it or not, there's a heavy winter storm which hit the Middle East. A winter storm. They got a winter storm, and I didn't think it snowed in Israel. They had no idea that it snowed there. But according to a story, the Middle East on Friday had snow, forcing closure of roads leading in and out of Jerusalem and sprinkling Israel with the desert area with a rare layer of snow. The snow also fell in parts of the West Bank, Lebanon, Jordan, Syria, with a cold front sweeping through that region. Snowstorm added burdens to Syrians displacing any war and living in tents and Jordan's Zatari refugee camp. So, according to Raid, she identified herself as that. According to this reporter, Syrian refugee, the camp has difficult even before the storm hit. Quoting, she said, "It is a third snowstorm. Many people live in tents, and their situation is very bad." Looking at that situation of the children, by contrast, the Holy Land's ancient sites were a picture postcard on that day. Snow-capped golden dome of the Rock, the Muslim site of Jerusalem dusted with some white. Jerusalem holy site blanketed with nativity. The church of the West Bank, town of Bethlehem, where Christians' tradition told Jesus was born, was white. Major winter wonderland. According to Miriam Leibowitz, a Jerusalem resident, she strolled through the snow-filled city park with her family. The middle of Jerusalem, they said we felt like we were in Switzerland. Jerusalem's municipality spokeswoman Branchi Sprung said that 25 centimeters, that's 10 inches of snow, was dumped on the city. 20-year-old Nancy Fairman, who is a Jewish seminary student from Montsey, New York, said He was praying for a group of men at the Western Wall when snow started. He said it was awesome. Early hours of the morning, Israeli police closed the main roads leading in and out of Jerusalem and reopened them by midday. And Jerusalem's light rail team service was shut down 1 day after the trams. And they are making dry runs without passengers. And they were derailed overnight due to the snow, according to a spokesman there. So I just didn't think Jerusalem or in that area would have snow. But they say that it's a rare snowstorm. That's weird. Well, maybe it. Look what we've been having here. I mean, it's possible. They're saying that 10 inches of snow fell there. Would you believe it? Wow. 10 inches of snow in Jerusalem, which I thought was like warm territory. I thought they never got that kind of weather. So if anybody's out there listening online from Jerusalem and maybe listening in that area, I don't know if anybody who picks up internet area might be listening, because I don't know. I'd see what time it is there. I'm not sure, but if you're listening, if you get a chance to hop on board and talk to me here, tell me about that. Jerusalem with a snowstorm. That's quite bizarre. Wow. Okay, we're going to talk about that throughout the day here. Jerusalem with a snowstorm. And let's see what else is new. We're going to get into more stuff. Getting back into the, let's see, we got any response? Nope. Getting into this story coming out of Australia as we continue, strange but true, this bizarre looking shark, and it is bizarre. Actually, I think it has like more than one fin. This is a ugly looking shark. It looks like something out of a horror movie. I mean, I can make a horror movie out of this. It's comes out. It was caught by a fisherman in Australia. An odd creature, a rare type of shark known as a frilled shark, spelled F-R-I-L-L-E-D. Frilled shark is sometimes called a fossil fish because of its roots to be traced back 80 million years. CNN reported this. Found this by a fisherman named David Gilliard, who said he'd never seen anything like this before, and has a description of it. It's an audio description, but you can probably imagine from his description what the shark looks like. It actually has two fins.
This was not a...
Let me check. I'm on the wrong track. Here we go. This is bizarre. Check this out.
This observance is one of the more noteworthy of the dive. If you look in the distance, you'll see a white, grayish shape slowly begin to form into view. Actually a shark swimming about 4 or 5 feet off the surface. It's known as a frilled shark. It took us a while to identify it, but it is a frilled shark. It's pretty primitive. Has 6 gills as opposed to 5, like the majority of the sharks. It gets its name frilled shark because it has frilled gill slits.
Yeah, frilled shark, or it... I don't know. I'm not going to begin to give you... It has another name, but I'm not about to begin to pronounce it. Normally found in extreme depths of cold temperature waters off the coast of New Zealand and even Japan. The fish could also be found between the coast of the British Isles through Spain into northern Africa. Mark Meakin is a shark biologist in the Australian Institute of Marine told about the age. And they're saying it's rarely caught because their habitat is usually in areas where fishing is prohibited. But sometimes frilled sharks can be found in the Taiwanese fish markets, according to scientists. The creature has 25 rows of teeth. You imagine that? 25 rows of teeth, 300 in total, sharp, very sharp, like backward needles. And what they can do, their main meal is squid and octopus. It can extend its jaw to swallow its prey, more than half its size according to the age. Frilled sharks are described were first described back in 1884. And its closest relative, the cow shark, dates back 95 million years, according to this article. The shark, extremely long, has very long pregnancies. They're saying the embryos grow only about a half an inch, 1.4 centimeters each month. So this thing, when it's pregnant, it's probably very mean, maybe. Typical frilled shark pregnancy established about 3.5 years. The animal is still alive, according to one Galileo pulled it out of the water, but did not survive very long. And it was donated to a local museum. Wow. An ugly looking thing. I mean, I'm sure one of these days movie producers will see this thing and go, why, yeah, let's make a movie about this shark. It's an ugly looking thing. We can have it attack people and all that good stuff. I can see it coming. It's on its way, no doubt about it. But anyway, that is an interesting story coming out of Australia. Wow. Frilled shark, folks, gets better, doesn't it? All right, let's see what other one's coming up. Here's another interesting story. Remember that meteor? I think it was what? 2 years ago, I think, wasn't it? 66-foot wide meteor asteroid which broke over the city of Shevchensk in Russia on February 15th of 2013, about 2 years ago. Remember, shattered windows across the area and sending people screaming to the hospital with incinerations. Well, originally astronomers thought that Shevchensk meteor came from 1.24 mile wide, 2 kilometer near Earth asteroid called 1999 NC43. Its closer look at this asteroid orbit likely a mineral composition grained in spectroscopy, and they suggest a few similarities between it and a Russian meteor. They say there's two bodies similar to orbits around the sun. Initial studies show that they're similar compositions. Fascinating story here about this. However, the composition Shevchensk meteorite was that recovered after the event, similar and common type to a meteorite called LL Schonrites. A near-Earth asteroid was the composition that is distinctively different from this.
This was not a... What exploded over Russia? Presented by Science at NASA. When the sun rose over Russia's Ural Mountains on Friday, February 15th, many residents of nearby Chelyabinsk already knew that a space rock was coming. Later that day, an asteroid named 2012 DA14 would pass by Earth only 17,200 miles above Indonesia. There was no danger of a collision, NASA assured the public. Maybe that's why, when the morning sky lit up with a second sun and a shockwave shattered windows in hundreds of buildings around Chelyabinsk, only a few people picking themselves off the ground figured it out right away. This was not a crashing plane or a rocket attack. It was a meteor strike, the most powerful since the Tunguska event of 1908, says Bill Cook of NASA's Meteoroid Environment Office. In a one-in-a-million coincidence that still has NASA experts shaking their heads, a small asteroid completely unrelated to 2012 DA14 struck Earth only hours before the publicized event. These are rare events, and it is incredible to see them happening on the same day, says Paul Chodas of NASA's Near-Earth